News cycle turned into a crazy, crazy tempest. I think coming up into the midterms, the the fake political movement, more a street gang that's being run by dear leader Pornstar Humper, is under the strategy where if they just turn up the anger, turn up the volume, and turn up the bullshit, it's like your knobs on your guitar amp. You turn, presence, resonance, and treble all up at the same time. Um, this was one of the most ballistic entries into a news week I've seen in a fairly long time. Um, and some of it is such bad political moves of circling the wagons. Not that both parties don't do it at some level, but um, the first thing I found really concerning this week is it was leaked that Max Miller, the son-in-law of Bernie Moreno, the guy that his wife is trying to get a restraining order against him because he is a violent, felonious abuser, up to and including um, aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, putting a gun to his wife's head while she was changing the baby. That's the allegation. Um, Upon dear leader Pornstar Humper's personal order to the Republican state GOP, Max Miller will be on the ballot regardless of his felonious conduct. Okay. So they're throwing out any cover story they have that this is not a street gang and it isn't just a bunch of felons, con artists, gang members, Klansmen, uh, hucksters, grifters, thieves. Hey, Genji. Um, if you want to keep Max Miller in office, and it tells you how desperate they are for the seat count, because Max Miller is not a good guy. Okay, even his father-in-law and some of his peers are saying he needs to get out of the race and get out of Congress. Okay, he's got obviously got issues, possibly psychiatric issues, definitely some criminal issues, and he doesn't need to be there. Okay, um, me when it comes to domestic violence, that is intolerable to me. Intolerable. Um, Back in my day on patrol, if you were arrested for domestic violence, and in California, that's 273.5 PC, that is domestic physical abuse with signs of injury. Okay, so if you got arrested for 273.5, a felony, and the chief does not immediately suspend you and take away your badge and gun with the purposes of firing you from the police department, um, we have a problem. We have a big problem on the patrol teams. We would not respond if you got arrested for domestic violence and you called for backup. We're not coming. Sorry, didn't get that transmission. What? Well, sorry, buddy. If you can beat your wife or beat your girlfriend, you should be able to handle whatever you just got into on the street. Okay, because I personally don't give a fuck after your arrest. Okay, we had a really bad incident. Well, fortunately, it was not with our department. It was with the department next door to us in the next city, which we work closely with all the time. Um, and a lot of our officers began their career in the city next door and then moved over to us because, frankly, we were a better police department with better culture and more actual productive law enforcement. We also paid a little better, to be honest, so that's why a lot of people were attracted. But we had a guy in the next city who was arrested not just for felonious domestic violence causing injury. It was a pretty horrific case the way we heard it. So we were on the city line because that city had an incident, and they were like, "Hey, we need a couple extra cars." And we're like, "Hey, we're right here. We'll come back up." So we jumped over, and it was me and one of our most senior officers, who was a former Marine who lived through Khe Sanh, Vietnam. We get done with the call, whatever it was. People started breaking up, cars started driving away, and our senior officer looks at their watch commander, the sergeant, and goes nose to nose with him and goes, "Unless you get rid of that asshole, this is the last time we show up." And the sergeant was aghast. The sergeant, the watch commander from next door, was aghast. He was like, "What do you mean?" "Means we're not coming next time. Either you fire the douchebag who beat his wife and take away his police powers, or we're not coming when you call for help. Do I make myself clear?" Okay. Well, next week we find out, yeah, the chief finally took action against the guy. He wasn't allowed back on patrol. They at least put him on desk duty, but that wasn't good enough for us. Like, no, you need to take away his badge and the gun. He beat his fucking wife. That is unacceptable. Well, how times have changed, I guess. Because having Max Miller of Ohio, and it's not just one incident. It seems to be a lineage of problems with this guy. The crescendo being the aggravated assault against his spouse. Again, in my book, that's completely intolerable. You know, as far as any brother-in-laws I've had in my life, I've told them to be careful. Especially when my sister lived in Nevada. I go, you know how easy it is to dig a hole in the desert? Watch yourself, asshole. So this whole Max Miller thing, and he's going to stay in the race. He's going to stay in Congress because the entire party is now sycophants that literally get on their knees anytime Trump says a word. Not one of these fucking asshole MAGA representatives or senators can actually think for themselves. Okay. So let's keep the felon on the payroll, because we need more fucking assholes with red hat rube hats, okay, identifying themselves as the biggest douchebags in the universe. And our king douchebag right now is Max Miller, the guy who beats up his kids and pulled a gun on his wife. That's fucked up. That's fucked up. Yeah, I'm already at the point where I'm going to have trouble voting for anybody in the Republican Party for the rest of my life. It's just way too corrupt. It's way too out there. And that's not saying anything about conservatism, because genuine conservatism is not the problem. Nationalism, criminality, and a street gang minded political movement, that's the fucking problem. Okay. But I will vote for a libertarian or an independent or a Democrat or even a progressive Democrat, as long as they don't go cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. Okay. That's why I don't have, and I'll be talking about him in a little bit, Abdul there in Michigan. The fucking guy says he's a capitalist. Okay, I'll take him at his word. Okay, he's not a socialist. He's a lefty, but he's a capitalist lefty. Cool. We can work together. Okay, by the way, I'm wearing NASA today. And anytime you see this NASA t-shirt, it's, yes, I love NASA. I've loved NASA since I was a kid. I still think the astronauts are heroes. I think Apollo was one of the coolest things we've ever fucking done in our history. But when I wear the NASA shirt, it's actually a fuck you SpaceX shirt. You just lost $1 trillion, you fucking grifters. I fucking hate SpaceX. So this is starting to fade, so I'm going to have to buy a new one. So today's lesson, kids, is fuck SpaceX and fuck Elon Musk. Yeah, the news is such a tempest. It's crazy today. Crazy. Cray. Okay. Did you see that vaccination press conference with the executive order? Oh my God. Suddenly, Stephen Miller is a MD MPH with all the information you need to protect you and your children. Oh my God, the vaccination order. Now, let me take a step back. Do you all understand what an executive order applies to? An executive order only applies to one thing. It applies to the executive branch of the federal government. Nothing else. It doesn't apply to Congress. It doesn't apply to the judiciary. It does not apply to the states. Okay? I'm going to rewrite the entire vaccination schedule as a dementia patient who's been suspected of pedophilia. I am going to rewrite all the vaccination schedules because we do it wrong. I'm not going to tell you that. Nah, vaccines are bad. Okay, let me tell you something. Trump himself has been vaccinated up to and including COVID. Anytime he tells you he doesn't like the COVID shots, he's fucking lying. Now, here's another message for you. Any 60s and above, 60, 70, 80 congressperson, I guarantee you they're vaccinated on the orders of their family physician. And if they're elderly with medical issues, heart problem club, diabetes, some genetic disorder that's catching up to them, whatever, I guarantee you their physician's going, no, you need to take your shots. Okay? I've had to go through a lot of doctors since 2007, since the accident. I have yet to see a doctor tell me that vaccinations are bad for me. Okay? Especially being immunocompromised. I don't have a spleen anymore. I lost it during the accident. A rib broke off and tore my spleen right off, and I almost bled to death internally. Okay, so I don't have a spleen. That means I can't do bacterial filtering. That means any secondary infection, I'm in trouble. Okay, when I got sick in COVID the first time, I was in Las Vegas. I wasn't even home, and I got really sick. I ended up staying at a resort hotel for an entire week, hiding in my room. I was so sick. I got on the telemedicine phone call with a doctor in Colorado through my health insurance, and I told her, like, I feel terrible. These are all my symptoms. I'm doing really bad. I can't control my body temp. Oh, and by the way, I have an accident in my history, and I do not have a spleen. The doctor was like, this was the doctor's actual reaction on the video. Oh shit, you need to get on the Pax pills tomorrow morning, or you're going to end up in the hospital. Okay. Anytime I tell a doctor, even a doctor I'm just meeting, my health history, especially my accident and the fact that I'm now immunocompromised by not having a spleen, I can't filter bacteria anymore out of my bloodstream. They're always like, get treatment, get vaccinated, do this, do that. They're never saying what Robert Kennedy Jr. or Stephen Miller or Dr. Oz or RFK Jr. are saying. In fact, they say the exact opposite. Amy says, call me crazy, but I'll take just about anything Big Pharma wants me to over Stephen Miller. I agree. I usually don't take my medical advice from angry Jewish Nazis from Santa Monica, California, who are known to lie and do not have an MD or an MPH. Yeah, so yeah, 2 thumbs up, Amy. I totally agree with you. And the disinformation, man, they had a whole queue of disinformation queued up for this press conference, and it just bombed social media and the newspapers. KKK Levitt, the white Nazi hoe. Judy says, MAGA is a death cult who wants us to die. Yes, they do, and they specifically want your children to die. Okay, that's their healthcare reform, killing Americans. 100% agree with you, Judy. KKK Levitt put out a fake reductive meme claiming that every country in Europe only requires 16 shots. We in the United States need 72 injections. Is the meme true? No, I researched it just before I got online. Nope. Not even remotely true. Okay. Every country sets their own vaccine schedules in Europe. It's not an EU thing. That's the first thing they get wrong. The second thing wrong is even the oral doses of vaccines for the purposes of disinformation and propaganda put out by KKK Levitt, they counted all the oral medicines and the nasal sprays as injections. Okay. So do we actually get 72 injections? No, we don't even get 72 vaccination doses. We get about 34 to 36, depending on where you live and what the fuck is going on in disease control at the time. Okay, so they instantly put out disinformation to back up their bullshit. They had no proof, no cause, no medical backing, no medical research says to do this. Mayo ain't saying do this. Massachusetts General ain't saying do this. John Hopkins ain't saying this. UCLA Medical School ain't saying this. Stanford's Children's Hospital is not saying this. I know, I just fucking checked. Okay, so yeah, the death cult is going like, yeah, ignore your shots because you know, meningitis. What could go wrong there? One of our family friends' kids got meningitis. It is the worst thing I've ever seen happen to a kid. Please, if they're at risk at meningitis whatsoever, please vaccinate your children. The horrible problems our family's friend's child has for the rest of their life is too lengthy to fucking talk about here, because it's horrific, including the year of being a zombie. That was real fun. Okay. Please vaccinate your children. Because it's like, this is what pisses me off about these fucking Nazi MAGA twats. Okay. Nobody is saying don't inoculate your dog for parvo. Nobody is saying don't inoculate the chickens for bird flu so we could eat later this year when we get done growing the chickens. Nobody is telling the Nebraska Cattlemen's Association that anthrax and foot and mouth disease isn't real and you don't need to vaccinate or medically screen for it or treat for it. Okay, nobody is saying that, but the death cult is saying let your kids get sick from completely preventable diseases. And how are we going to tell you this? By a complete set of lies produced by people who have no medical training. None. And even the fucking twats that he appointed, they are MDs technically, but they're also severe disinformation sources, and they are anti-vaxxers by association. They try to put a little cudgel around their anti-vax bullshit, but they're anti-vax nonetheless. And again, nobody else that I just listed off, from Mayo to Stanford, is saying, oh, vaccinations are the problem. You need natural immunity. Okay? I don't have natural immunity anymore. That's why I need the vaccination. I cannot filter bacteria out of my bloodstream. So any secondary infection will cause me great harm. Okay, they made a blanket statement today is once again for the 1000th time that vaccines and the vaccine schedules are bad. But do they give us a reason why they're bad? No, they're bad, drool. They're bad. Yell, you're stupid. You're dumb. Quiet, piggy. Okay, how is that fucking medical information? I don't get it. I hate me ask a question and they get on to a whole nother topic. But what is really disturbing here about the vaccines is they've come up with a whole diatribe. Bristol says it's like going to a plumber to get your baby delivered. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Hey, I'm having, like this real signs of heart palpitation and fever and sweats. What should I do? Go ask your carpenter neighbor what he thinks. Yeah, it's like that. Exactly. everybody chimed in, including right there in the Oval Office. Everybody without a medical degree had a vapid opinion about how wonderful Trump was saving America from the bad vaccines. Okay. And then they rolled out at the same time, eat better. Eat better. Yeah, you should be eating good food. No shit. Okay, eat fresh fruits and vegetables. Eat nuts and seeds. I do all the time. It's delicious. I actually like those foods. I actually like apples and broccoli, so I eat them all the time. Okay. I also like beans. I also like rice. Okay. I don't eat. I love my steaks, but I don't eat steaks every meal. So they did this. Eat better because good food is good health. Okay, that's true. But on the subjects of vaccinations, that's a complete non sequitur. What the fuck are you talking about? You're telling me eating an apple is going to protect you against the measles, one of the most virulent diseases we've ever discovered? Oh, and they say, add this shot at this time, delay this shot, and split up the MMR. What medical evidence do they have for these suggestions written in the executive order? I couldn't find anything. And I looked. Okay. Now, the really, really weird thing here about them putting all this into an executive order, because it has to come from Trump. Everything has to come in from on high, from the king's throne room. Okay, so it couldn't be just another recommendation policy put out by the CDC and HHS in a news release and a bulletin to doctors and hospitals. No, we got to have a White House Oval Office ceremony. How Dr. Trump, no medical degree, no MPH, no medical training whatsoever, is going to save America. I didn't get a harump from that guy. Meh. Quiet, piggy. Meh. Guess who sets the inoculations for school and school athletic programs in each and every state? Guess what? It isn't the CDC, it isn't HHS, and it's not the Oval Office. It's each individual state. Kankles RX. Exactly. The biggest outlier in this is Florida and Georgia. Okay. If you're into high school sports and other high school programs, you need a plethora of proven, documented vaccinations, or they won't let you wrestle, play basketball, cheerlead, or play football. Okay, and this is where it all goes right. All the COVID vaccine, it's got Wi-Fi transmitters and little pieces of sinew and tissue in it from little babies. Oh, but you need 14 other vaccinations. And if you don't get them, we're going to kick you out of school. We're going to at least kick you off the football team. Okay. So the reddest states with the leadership to have some of the biggest echo bullshit of the vaccination nonsense, which, by the way, I'll repeat again. In the 1970s, when I was growing up in New England, this was the hippie commune bullshit. All you need is rainbows and butterflies and eating a few dandelions. You don't need to be vaccinated for meningitis. This was the hippie bullshit in the 70s. They lived by it. Now it's the far right assholes who think Nazism is our fucking answer. Near every single state in this country has a vaccination schedule by state statute that is required for what? Public school admission. Oh, this is the fun thing. Current leader of the Catholic Church, the Pope, the new Pope, he says vaccinations is your duty as a Catholic. So when the Catholic schools are now requiring all the vaccines, including COVID, the red states are going, no, you can't order the vaccines like that. You have to follow our vaccine schedule. And the Catholic schools are going, no. They're literally portraying the vaccines as 72 forced injections. And again, it's not even 72 doses from baby to 18. It's 34 to 36. They doubled the number because oogie boogie. There's a big number. We put injections next to it, even though some of the doses are nasal sprays or orally ingested. Okay, so they really went over the top to lie about all this. They don't explain shit. They don't understand. They don't tell us how Dr. Salk was wrong. Okay, they don't refute the prior studies being done by medical schools all over the fucking world that vaccinations have literally saved millions of children since they were introduced last century. They ignore the fact is we have been acquiring vaccinations for troops since the colonial army under George Washington. Yes, George Washington got inoculated for smallpox and ordered his troops to all get force inoculated, whether they liked it or not, because it was a force readiness issue. Smallpox can take out an entire fucking company in a matter of days. Okay? But no, George Washington didn't do that. How? It's written in his diary. No, that's got to be made up woke liberal propaganda. It's quiet, piggy. How fucking stupid these people are. So what is the point of this? Fucking beyond, like it's already been stated, this is a death cult and they're deathing. I don't know what the fucking purpose of this is. I don't know what the purpose it is to lie to people. Oh, and guess what Trump's executive order does? If the healthcare insurance companies and your doctor follows this new schedule, the cost of vaccinations just skyrocketed. You will have to pay for more visits and you will have to make more copays than before. Because right now, you go in and you get a couple of shots, you get the combined MMR, boom, you're out of there with one copay. No, that's now 5 to 6 visits under the executive order. So you did have a $25 copay for your kid. Now you've got $100 to $150 copay for your kid for the same process. Okay, parents can't afford rent, groceries, new clothes for their kids. Okay, but he just jacked up your healthcare cost again, and the ACA just announced another double-digit increase to healthcare under the ACA program since they pulled the subsidies. Okay, so we're just not going to give a shit about your kids, and we're going to lie to you. And remember, where is this all driven from? RFK Jr., a fucking heroin addict who abuses steroids, who eats raccoon penis, or whatever crazy shit he claimed in the interview the other day. I had to turn it off after 10 minutes. I can't even stand looking at the guy anymore. I'm sorry, you can eat all the fucking bananas and lentils and low glycemic brown rice you want. That's not going to protect you against COVID. Just like shoving horse dewormer up your ass, whether you're Aaron Rodgers, the football player, or Joe Rogan, shoving horse dewormer up your ass is not a medical solution for shit. But that's what they want to sell you. We were the only World Cup team that didn't have universal health care, Bristol said. Well, yeah, because we're the only country, especially with post all of our allies we fought with World War II. Anybody who's still around, we are the only ally who has not figured out universal health care. Unfortunately, I have a MAGA cousin with 180 IQ, yet they still believe that all MAGA propaganda. Yeah, IQ has nothing to do with whether they believe in the cult or not. That's more EQ. They your cousin generally profiling probably is more of a loner, has resentment, um, identifiable resentment to certain things, whether it's governance, certain people in the country. And what MAGA does is MAGA encapsulates and amalgamates the anger, the feeling of being disconnected. And they tell you, no, 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 we'll take you in. And we'll let you believe anything you want to believe as long as you believe in what we tell you. Who does that sound like? Scientology, the Heaven's Gate cult. Okay. Smart people are in Scientology. Successful people are in Scientology. Scientology is a cult. Not every one of the Heaven's Gates and not every one of the Reverend Jim Jones followers were fucking idiots. Okay. There's an emotional draw to the cult that captures them. They give up on their intelligence, which should be their protective layer. They give up on that and go with the negative emotions that they're piling up, and they think that this is an outlet for them. Okay. And if MAGA wasn't a cult, we wouldn't need real deprogrammers trying to get people out of MAGA. And that's happening now. There are former MAGA disciples who are starting either straight up deprogramming systems, like we had to do when people jumped into the Moonies and shit in the 70s and 80s, or they are treating MAGA like an addiction. And they're basically holding group therapy for addicts. You've driven your life into a system where this is your feedstock. You have to be angry at something. That something is going to be somebody that's not directly in your circle or in your ideology. It's always somebody else's fault, never yours, and never the fault of somebody you're a fan of. Okay. And you feel like you're gaining acceptance in a group who believes in you, but that's the nasty thing about a cult. The cult is unidirectional. Okay. Trust me. Who does Trump loathe and disrespect the most? A working class, low educated Trump supporter. That's who he hates the most. Okay. The respect, the reward for being in the cult, that is unidirectional toward him. Just like it was unidirectional in Charles Manson's Spawn Ranch, or the same way it was about the little bald fuck who ran Heaven's Gate. Same thing with Dave Miscavige at Scientology. Okay. No, it isn't about friends or not having friends. It's what they internalize emotionally. They may have a social group, but they still don't think they fit or they belong because people don't see the world like they do. See, I see the world and I know it. I see the world a lot differently than a lot of other people, but I understand how I got here. Like, I've seen the dark side in society on 2 continents, by the way, working undercover. Okay. I see things a lot differently. Even in my social group, I can really shock people with some of my opinions, but I have never sought out somebody to confirm all my beliefs so I would fawn over them. I guess I'm not that gullible, or I'm just Irish and I'm very hard-headed, one or the other. Okay, but it's not actually about having friends or not friends. It's about the emotionality of how they're connecting with a larger group. Okay, and if they have an axe to grind, everybody in that social circle should have that axe to grind, and that is MAGA's appeal. So yeah, the vaccination thing was so bad. And remember, Trump's already lost, and I think also a CDC reg got thrown out by the courts. the MAGA cult has already lost in federal court at least a couple of times trying to do this very thing, trying to rejigger the vaccine, because there's no basis for doing it. Okay? Because if you ask the vaccination group at Mayo, they disagree. When you ask the children's hospital leads in the advice to parents, they disagree. Okay, and under the post-Nixon law, part of the post-Nixon cleanup we had to do, we passed the APA, which is the Procedures Act. Okay, and the Procedures Act says specifically, and this is where Trump loses a lot of his court cases, and a lot of his underlings lose their cases, is laws and regulations and directives in the federal government cannot be changed unless there is evidence, rulemaking, and public comment. Okay. The last thing a change can be is arbitrary and capricious. And I've seen that exact language from the Procedures Act, arbitrary and capricious, time and time and time and time again in federal judges' decisions. You made no effort at real investigation and real research. You made no effort in rulemaking, and you took exactly zero public comments. Okay. Therefore, you do not follow the law that tells you how you can change things in the federal government. So what they're doing is shortcutting a procedure. But again, if you go back to Project 2025, ambush the courts, turn everything upside down, find a new excuse to yell about this thing, and keep going into the federal courts until you get your way. And they have a system. They're repeating it now. They want to relitigate everything they lost over the last 3 months. Even though the court and the Supreme Court has already said no or thrown the change out, they want to relitigate the whole thing from scratch. Now, whether or not the Supreme Court and the federal courts are going to allow them to do it, that's to be seen. But this is now a stated methodology of these kooks. Why? Because that's the game plan Ross Vaught wrote with Heritage Foundation and Project 2025. Never admit you're wrong. Always change the topic. Turn every topic on his head. Sue. As soon as you don't get away, attack the judges, attack the judiciary as a system, and attack the political system as some sort of conspiracy against you. Okay. What they did was took Roy Cohn, the maniac racist fucking Goomba that was Trump's early life mentor, and they basically codified it into an administration procedure manual for Trump 2.0. And that's the Project 2025 doc. Everything they're doing, they wrote down. Because you notice that I haven't said ever that, oh my God, I'm shocked and surprised this is happening. No, I'm pissed off this is happening. I think it's foolish that it's happening. Surprised? No. Shocked? Never. Because I actually read Project 2025. I knew every bit of this was coming. And anybody that says they didn't know was coming and they're in any position of authority is lying. Okay? This is an agenda to build the anti-vax executive order is an agenda to build distrust, not just in government, but build distrust in the medical community and medical science, and science in general. Okay? Because when you're in a cult, you can only trust one thing. I wrote a whole essay about this. Okay? Go back to that poll 2 years ago where Trump fucking sycophants, gang members, cultists, they answered a survey where they put Trump at the top of the list of truth sayers. Not their friends, not their families, not even their local pastors. Suddenly their pastors, their own pastor, somebody that they live their lives with, they see several times a week. They're involved in community with their pastors. Suddenly their pastors had to take a back seat to Trump, and only Trump knew the truth. Okay? This anti-vax shit, this purposeful bullshit. This is an extension. Don't trust your doctor. Don't trust your pastor. Don't trust your wife. Don't trust your parents. If you're older, don't trust your kids. Don't hate your neighbor. Just don't not like your neighbor. Hate your neighbor. Your neighbor isn't a cultist. Therefore, he is your avowed enemy. And if they do anything outside of the cult allowed sphere of action, you just gave them a reason to be lifelong enemies. How dare, because you made your own health decisions, how dare you went out and got the COVID vaccine? You're part of the lemmings. You're part of the woke state. No, I'm part of a partially disabled group of Americans who would like to live longer. The first COVID almost fucking killed me. Now they're claiming that everybody who died in COVID, all 1.1 million people, died of some other factor, or they died because of the Wi-Fi transmitters in the COVID shots. And I think I've told y'all this before. I was in a war room. We all went into lockdowns here in California, and they sent us home from work, and which was fine. I already work 2 days a week from home anyways. When I code, I put on my good Sony, noiseless headphones, my isolation headphones, and I rock the fuck out to some hard rock and metal music, and I code and do data, and I'll sit there and I won't even pick up my head for 7 hours. I'll just be heads down working, But they sent us home. Everybody had to work 5 days a week. Some people freaked out, whatever. But as soon as we got sent home, I got an email from the office of the CTO saying, hey, you and your wingman, you guys have been assigned to the war room. We're going to build a remote work app for all the executives now having to manage all these remote users, VPN time, circuit time, whatever. So we did a crash team exercise, and we built up this app. My job was taking the health reports from all over the world, scraping the shitty PDFs, because none of the cities understood what data reporting was back then, and they were fucking it up miserably. But eventually, we got the data. We got the routine of scraping the data. We got the cities to report better data, especially New York City. Boy, their first couple rounds of data sucked. We got so mature so fast in our website, London Fire Department started using our data live. About 6 weeks into the war room exercise, I took all the data we had compiled thus far and I put it through a machine learning prediction algorithm. And the algorithm mean out a year said we were going to lose 885,000 Americans to the disease based on current data. Given that we had very little data to work with, and that was a big projection outward, we only have a couple of months of data. We're trying to project out a year. Lot of variance, of course, but yeah, we weren't that far off. We ended up losing 1.1 million people, and they're treating it today like it didn't happen, which is the sickest thing they've done so far. And if you're a political wonk like me, you remember the bullshit with Benghazi, where we lost 4 security contractors. It was the end of the world and the end of America because 4 people died in Benghazi. Okay. People still online talk about the Benghazi 4. Meanwhile, they're denying 1.1 million people died in the pandemic because they're still posting plandemic videos. This was all planned by Dr. Fauci. It was all his fault. He and the Chinese suddenly gained 1,000 years of genetic science in a day and created a virus out of whole cloth. It just came out of a lab mysteriously because suddenly they had all this technology that literally never existed before or has existed since. If they could make a COVID virus or something like that in the lab, how have we not seen another one? Occam's razor that shit, you fucking morons. couple other tidbits I want to cover before the hour closes out. This Hearn case, the retired Olympian who looked at the decaying, dissolving liner in the reflecting pool in Washington, D.C. This is another bold-faced lie series, which I cannot believe they're able to lie so straight-faced, lie so obviously, then be adamant they're still right. Trump, in a fucking presser, admitted two things. There's no evidence against Stearns whatsoever. And the problems with the reflecting pool was probably shoddy work by a contractor who tried to rush the job. Then he turns around and says, Hearn is still a felon. The old retired Olympian is still the root cause of his bullshit story. Not the bad contractor, not dumping 15% hydrogen peroxide, which will take paint off surfaces. Bristol says, I want COVID Ghazi, January 6 Ghazi, Epstein Ghazi, and Amalians Ghazi. Hell yes. Yeah, I see what you're saying there. Yeah. I would like to see real angst about real problems. Hell yes. 2 thumbs way up. I hope Hearns not only sues the federal government, I hope he sues Pereiro and Donald Trump personally, because they're just lying about what happened. And now they're admitting that we never had any evidence, but we're still going to accuse you of a felony that comes with 10 years in prison, 10 years in federal prison, where there is no parole. Okay? Mr. Hearn, sue the fuck out of these idiots. It's gotten remarkably worse with Iran. That's another thing where I can't believe the bullshit and the lies are so high. I did a deep research of it. I couldn't sleep. I ended up like 3.5 hours reading articles, running things through ChatGPT, looking at my source tab, reading a fuck ton of articles. This is the things that surprised me from my research. Guess what we have never done during the negotiations with Iran? We've never talked to an actual Iranian. I didn't know that. We're talking to the Pakistanis. We're talking to, do you call them Emiratis? The UAE? Talking to them. We're not talking to a single Iranian. But we're close to a peace deal every other day for the last 5 months. If we're not even talking to fucking Iranians, how do we sign a peace deal with the Iranians? We're not even at the table with them. We're not even on the phone with them. So we have gotten absolutely nowhere with this. Nowhere. We've expended most of our special munitions. Now the defense contractors are panicking, okay, because they can't keep up with the U.S. shooting in Iran, and now they're just going to cut off Ukraine. Because I still think the Trump Tower Moscow deal is behind Trump's shitty attitude towards Zelensky and the Ukrainians. He still wants to build Trump Tower Moscow. In fact, he heavily lobbied for it and tried to work the deal in the middle of his 2016 presidential campaign. The defense contractors now said they don't want to give any more armaments to Ukraine because Ukraine will figure out how to make them cheaper, better, and faster. Oh, so the defense contractors just admitted they blink and milk the U.S. taxpayer for shitty gear they won't redesign to make it cheaper, faster, or better. Trump just keeps repeating war and human rights crimes. Oh, we'll just destroy their infrastructure, destroy their economy, and let them starve to death. That's not war. That's a slow genocide. But hey, they're already down with genocide wherever they think they can get away with it. Ukraine thinks they can get away with it in Ukraine. Israel thinks they can get away with it in the West Bank and Gaza and anywhere else they decide to attack, which I guess now includes killing Americans in Jewish settlements. Because now the armed Jewish radicals in the settlements are now attacking anybody who's not part of their cult. Okay. Meanwhile, in Iran, Ukrainians are now being murdered by North Korean missiles being shot purposely into civilian targets. Shopping malls, apartment buildings, and like I just said, defense contractor goes, no, we're not going to give you anything to stop the inbound North Korean missiles on top of the inbound Russian missiles, on top of the inbound Iranian missiles hitting Ukraine, because Ukraine may do something better. And this is my personal opinion. I could be wrong, but I don't think so. The only reason we're in Iran, it was done on a whim because he thought, wow, this would be a great distraction from the Epstein files. And I get to suck up to Bibi Netanyahu, even though Trump doesn't understand that Bibi Netanyahu's got Trump on a leash. Okay. And of course, in Trump's mind, because he's a gangster, he's a grifter, he's a con artist, he's a convicted business felon, he's an adjudicated rapist, he's a suspected pedo. So what goes into his head? How do I personally make money off of the Iran war? Well, somebody laid down a fucking $500 million oil bet in between two of Trump's announcements. Okay, so I am convinced that Trump and his street gang are simply betting their way to massive profits using insider information because they know there is no truce at hand. There is no peace deal. This is a forever war. This is destroying the world economy. And if they know where the markets are going, they can make anywhere from millions to hundreds of millions of dollars in a single bet. And they're betting everything under the sun. Equities, bond moves, futures, shorts, Kalshi, Polymarket, IrishBookie.com. They don't give a fuck. They're betting on every fucking outcome they know is coming. And I'm sure it's a signal chat group being run by Trump's little underling. Hey, we're going to claim this today. Oil's going to move this direction, or defense contractor stocks are going to move this direction, or the bond market's going to freak out, short the bonds. They are playing, they're playing this for their own profit. That's the only reason we're really in Iran. They saw this as a hustle. And so what if they've expended all the specialty ammunition? It's not like Trump and his cabinet and his wealthiest campaign donors pay any taxes. The refurbishment costs of replacing all these weapons they shot off without a result all comes back on the middle class. All comes back on you and me. We get to pay for this. And in the middle of the Iranian war, where every week he claims there's going to be boots on the ground and he's going to go take Karg Island, they've announced for sweeping layoffs at the Veterans Administration again. Every time we go into a fucking war, what is the answer to funding the war? Taking money away from the Veterans Administration when you know you're going to create wounded veterans. Physically and mentally wounded veterans. You did this in Iraq, you're doing it again in Iran. And I tied this to a local thing. The last thing I'll talk about today is I keep telling you all, a lot of my regulars are here today. Thank you for being here. Expect racism to be on top of the menu going into November. Okay. If you thought their racism and their xenophobia was bad for the last 10 years, that's nothing. Hold on to your asses. It's going to get fucked up. And a lot of the mechanism and funding to run this racist shit is coming from lobbying groups. Not only AIPAC, but including in big numbers AIPAC, sure. Now, I think one of the things the far left gets wrong, because they don't like as the Israeli-Gaza situation, neither do I. They think AIPAC is the only lobbying problem. That's where you're totally fucking wrong. But Mike Rogers, I just looked into this. Mike Rogers is one of the few candidates that AIPAC hasn't given to, and that surprises me. But he has taken pro-Israel political network money totaling $63,701, and he has been reimbursed from these lobbying organizations, these pro-Israel, not AIPAC, but pro-Israel PACs. They've reimbursed him almost $95,000 in costs. So he's one of the weird ones that aren't shoveling money to politicians, because Mike Johnson's on the AIPAC payroll, Steve Scalise, the Nazi wacko from New York, Elsie Stefanik, is on the payroll there. And there's a local trend. I'll spin into this. Just give me a second. Mike Rogers, the guy running against Abdul El-Sayed in Michigan. Mike Rogers is lying hard. Mike Rogers is full-blown MAGA. And he's using Christian nationalism and Christian bigotry to message. And I don't like that. Stand on what you claim are your strengths. Okay. I'm sick and tired of the diss campaign, the attack ads, and the other bullshit. And that's why I'm voting for a certain person I'll tell you about here in a second, because I don't like the methodology of the other candidate. So Mike Rogers just put out a big internet ad campaign that said, Abdul believes that Abdul believes that America deserved 9/11. Did Abdul ever say that? Not that anybody can document, no. So it's just made up out of whole cloth. Okay. Now, what this represents as a pattern is because Abdul is not a Christian, he's Muslim. He's free game to use Christian bigotry against. And this is happening locally. We've got a CA-14 House seat that's opened. We have 2 local politicians that are vying for that seat in DC, in the House of Representatives. When I check their local backgrounds as politicians, check for corruption, check for donations, they're not remarkably different on the local politics level. Okay. It's Melissa Hernandez, the former mayor of Dublin. That's all she claims is a success. She only claims 2 successes. She was the mayor of Dublin, and she built a lot of homes. Now, she doesn't describe what she did when she claims she built a lot of homes. Did you do the HVAC? Did you do the framing? Did you do the wiring and the breaker? Do you have an electrical license? What's going on here? Okay. Melissa Hernandez, spends all of her time doing what Mike Rogers is doing. Attack ads, attack nonsense, just direct lies. So what happened when I saw this attack ad on YouTube that was being paid for by several groups, and I couldn't see the tiny print at the bottom, so I went and I researched it. I watch YouTube all the time. I watch science videos, I watch political videos, I watch a ton of music on YouTube, especially when I'm doing chores or doing other things around the house. And there's this one ad from the Melissa Hernandez campaign that is an attack ad against Aisha Wahab, her competitor. Aisha Wahab is Afghan. Her parents were Afghan refugees. Dr. Wahab is actually a U.S. citizen, born and raised in New York City. So this is California. You got to be careful. And this is a section of California. This isn't Orange County or Stockton, Inner Valley or something where this probably would play. But in our area, it won't play. She couldn't come out and do the Mike Rogers just instant Christian bigotry shit against Dr. Wahab. So instead, she just made up a lie in an attack ad, took $2 million from AIPAC and ran a YouTube ad 3 to 4 times an hour, nonstop, for the last few weeks. I'm sick and tired of the fucking ad because the ad is a lie. Okay. She In the debate for the procedural stuff, Dr. Wahab voted no a couple of times on this. How do we how do we chime in on those borderline cases where it's 16 and 17-year-olds dating an adult, and which is, the actual felonies and which is the misdemeanors. Because there's an abuse when it comes to like a 17-year-old dating technically a 17-year-old minor. If the 18-year-old is a black guy and the 17-year-old is a white girl, they're going to prosecute the black kid for molesting a child, even though there's not a great difference in age. It's a teenage relationship. So they misinterpret the votes that Hernandez's competitor made, because when I looked up at the legislative site at the state of California, what were the two final votes on this issue? Dr. Ishahab voted yes, not once, but twice on the bill Hernandez was complaining about. Okay, so I've seen an ad, I'm not shitting you, 120 times at least in the last couple of weeks on YouTube, and the ad is false. Who paid for it? AIPAC. And again, I'm not saying AIPAC is the only problem. Lobbying in general is a fucking problem. Okay, influence turns into corruption under these lobbyists at the drop of a hat. It's pretty bad. Okay, but when I looked at them locally and their policies and what they have accomplished, as local or state officials, I'm like, they're pretty much aligned. Okay, there's no like glaring gap like you're looking at like AOC versus, I don't know, Elsie Stefanik. M. Hope says, it's disgusting. A new film produced by Ben Shapiro's right wing, The Daily Wire, is facing accusations of Islamophobia, with critics saying it's an attempt to revive the post 9/11 anti-Muslim panic. Yes, yes, yes. That's exactly what they're trying to do. Because when I saw Hernandez's commercial, she tells me, I was the first Latino woman mayor. Oh, praise me. That's identity politics. I don't give a shit. Okay? We've had women mayors in this county and in this state for 50 years. Okay? Being a first woman, whatever, in a mayor's office is not impressive. Then she says, the establishment loves me and I build homes. And I'm like, that doesn't tell me what you're going to do in Washington, D.C. And that's 10% of her messaging. The other 90% of her messaging is this attack ad on YouTube. Okay, since I don't see a big political difference, they're both center-left candidates, or pretend to be at least. Okay, you always got to watch when they get to Washington what really happens. But there's no like big diff here. None of them have been in trouble. None of them has been involved in identifiable corruption. But if the only thing you're going to present to me is AIPAC paid Muslim hate, then I'm voting for Dr. Wahab, the Muslim. Okay? Because I don't like the way you approach this. Because by the issues, you're relatively the same. Like all local politicians are mostly the same. They have to back up the police department, even if they're a bunch of fuck-ups. You have to back up the fire department and paramedics, or everybody will pay more insurance. Because the way the fire department responds and keeps a protected community, and same with the police and the hospitals, that all is figured into your home insurance. There's a survey that happens every year that decides how much your insurance goes up by how fucked up your local government is or isn't. And if you're and so local politicians, especially around here, like it doesn't matter who we get in my town, the police departments are all war heroes. Everybody in the police department's a war hero, even though they've been a drug mule for their girlfriend. One got caught with 6 counts of felony embezzlement and grand larceny. Beating their wives. I already talked about that. That's not acceptable. Okay. Manslaughter at Walmart. That was not a justifiable use of force. Okay. a list of corruptions to include the chief of police. And we've had multiple chief of police with corruption problems, including the last chief who did a hit and run in her duty car and drove away from the scene of the accident. That's a misdemeanor. That's a crime. Okay. But every politician in the universe around here, oh, the police are all war heroes. They have a tank. They must be war heroes. Why? Because they're just afraid that the police department will turn on them. Because they use the crime as all-time high. It's not. I've explained that 10 times. I'm not going to go through that again tonight. Okay. Crime is so fucking low compared to 92 and the last bump in the mid 70s. It's ridiculous. But they sell you is you're all going to die unless we get another police tank and we get more guns and we have less accountability and we have more corruption. Okay. So both of them saying, oh, I get the support of the local police, the local fire department. That's just de facto nonsense. It doesn't even tell us what the fuck is going on locally. Okay. But if your whole campaign turns into 3 little tidbits, your first one is an identity politics, the second one I don't give a fuck about, and the third one doesn't come with an explanation, and the rest of your whole campaign is attacking a Muslim woman trying to convince people that she somehow supports child molesters, no, I'm not voting for Hernandez. Simply by the reasons and the methods you campaign. Not going to do it. My wife just sent me a text. She heard me talk. Depending on the reporting, now I was talking about the money funded to the ad. That was $2.1 million from my research today. But according to the San Francisco Chronicle, Hernandez has gotten $4.4 million from the lobbyists. No wonder the establishment loves her. So guess who I'm not voting for? Because you don't have to be an exact opposite of the professional haters like Mike Rogers or Elsie Stefanik or Chip Lee. You don't have to go that far for me to write you off. All you have to do is use the same funding mechanism and the same book of dirty tricks. Okay? She let child sex predators off the hook. No, she did not. That is an absolute lie. And of course, the picture they put in of her, okay, they want people to identify that she is not a white Christian, which comes no surprise to me given the funding mechanism for this attack ad, which again is non-fucking stop. Okay, if Hillary Clinton would have ran ads like this with such falsehoods against Trump, I'd have voted for Trump. That's how bad the ads are. And really, I would never vote for Trump. I hated him in the 80s. I loathe that son of a bitch in the 80s. How people adore him now is beyond fucking me. I mean, I always saw this guy as a crooked scumbag. He's never been anything but a crooked scumbag. And then you put a guy up in charge of the Republican Party, which screams family values. How many baby mamas does this fucker have from how many immigrant baby mamas? And you're going to scream family values at a guy who's been married one time for 38 years? Meanwhile, this guy's got a herd of ex-wives, one of them who's buried on his golf course in an unmarked grave. And you're going to tell me that he's the personification of family values? And then his best buddy and his chief financier is going to be Elon Musk with 16 baby mamas. Half of them he won't pay them or pay for their child support. One of the baby mamas wants to unionize Elon's baby mamas while they scream at us, family values. A convicted felon, an adjudicated rapist, a list of baby mamas, immigrant baby mamas who gave him anchor babies by his own description, by his own propaganda. There's no birthright citizenship. There's only anchor babies. Well, guess what? All your immigrant wives gave birth to what? Anchor babies! And I love in America. America is the only fucking country where you can claim piety and family values while you're on your third, fourth, or fifth fucking marriage. I thought marriage was a sacrament. Oh, it's a sacrament 5 times in your life? Jesus Christ. So, yeah, we're in for a terribly rough road going into the midterms. It's going to get ugly. Ugly with a capital U, because they are going to pull off any semblance that this isn't the Ku Klux Klan looking for permanent power. They will do anything. They will say anything. They will get any funding to tell any lie. Now, I don't care who does it. They don't have to be officially MAGA. Like, I don't think this Melissa Hernandez from Dublin, I don't think she's MAGA. Okay? It's hard to pin down where they are locally because a lot of times they don't admit that because we have independent, nonpartisan races and they don't want to be negatively attached one way or the other. But you don't necessarily have to be in Dear Leader Porn Star Humper's cult. You just have to be enough of an asshole for me to write you off. You know, when I ran for mayor as a write-in candidate, people asked me, like, why are you doing a write-in candidate? Because I'm not looking for your fucking endorsement. I'm not going to run an official campaign, go collect a bunch of donations, and then be beholden to the people who are causing the problems in the city in the first place. The red light camera was a revenue scheme run by not just an out-of-state, but an out-of-country vendor. Okay? This vendor bribed other agencies to get the cameras installed. That was proven and reported by places like the San Francisco Chronicle and the Sacramento Bee. Okay? I ran to get rid of the vendor fraud. I ran to stop the unnecessary militarization of the police. And I also ran against the cowardly speak they were projecting because they were going to sell the tanks, the little Tonka toy tanks, the Bearcats. They were going to sell those fucking things no matter what. And the no matter what in this case locally was they claimed they needed the Bearcats, multiple Bearcats. Because first they told us that it was only going to be a couple of departments, both sheriffs have them. Then we found out that every single department would get more than one. Then they would get drones. Then they would get cellular phone sharks to hijack the cellular phone networks. Then they'd get the surveillance software from Palantir to spy on social media. It was a complete 360 militarization. Now, the outgun thing really pissed me off because I spent so many years in law enforcement and the Army MPs, and I did some serious work when I was in Army CID against some very bad people, okay, both here and in Europe. Okay, I never walked around claiming I was outgunned because I knew I was a better shot than most. Okay, you give me a pistol and you give me an MP5, I don't give a fuck what is in your hands. We did a Freedom of Information Act request against our own city and our own police department under the claim they were outgunned. Guess what we found? The police department in their vault, in their arms room, had 6 Army-issue battlefield assault rifles. The M14 KS 308 fully automatic rifles. They were outgunned. No, you just wanted a tank to suppress minorities and suppress political opinion. That's what you wanted. You wanted to instill fear in a community and rule like East Germany did as a police state. You have no interest in doing real law enforcement, American law enforcement. Case closures, not your concern. Felony rates, not your concern. It's how many miles we put on the tank, how many times we get dressed up in our battle jammies and walk around with carbines. That's what they're projecting as law enforcement, not solving a case, not protecting my home from a burglar. No, that's not even interest. That doesn't even interest them anymore. In fact, just this week, they had a felony traffic stop right off the highway where 4 agencies showed up. They investigated 3 surveillance networks and called 2 tanks because one black guy brandished a weapon and threatened somebody. No shots fired. It was a .417 PC brandishing of a firearm. Hey, motherfucker, fuck you. Okay. Multiple SWAT teams, 4 agencies, 2 tanks, because that's what they're interested in doing. Okay. Do you think I'm going to run for mayor and take a donation from these fucking assholes? No, that's why I ran as a running candidate. I didn't want your fucking money. I wanted to actually fix something in our city, but we can't. And a lot of people agreed with me. Not many people voted for me, admittedly. It was only a couple hundred. Okay. But I had people approach me who had already been involved in city politics saying, like, we should actually put up a whole slate of candidates and try to take the entire city council next time. Because what's happening is totally out of control. And why it's out of control? The same interests keep financing the same bad messaging. So that's when I hear the lies about the vaccine, when I hear the APAC funded lies in a YouTube attack ad, this is why I'm so adamantly against this crap. Okay. Thank you guys for being here. It's getting late. I'll get you going. I'm going to go get some dinner. We still got a long road. We still got about 90 days to the midterm. Like I said, just got done saying it's going to be ugly. So stay healthy. Stay mentally fit. Remember to breathe. Okay. I have to tell myself that, especially when doing some research like I was doing this afternoon. Stay in good mind. Get your circle of friends and families and neighbors together. Just don't ask. Demand that we do something better this cycle, because the midterms is it. Can you chat me that message, Hope? I'll look into that. I saw the blurb on it over the weekend, and the problem is who is funding the taxpayers' Bill of Rights? Okay, because I'm all for tax reform if it makes sense, but a lot of times these are no tax agencies that just say, well, I live in a wealthy enclave and I make $600,000 a year. I don't think I have to contribute to the system anymore. Far too many of the tax movements in California have been like that. And we've got a problem right now. Like, not even Gavin Newsom. Like, I don't know why the fuck he thinks he can win the presidency. Nobody on the left will support him other than the corporate Dems. He's saying he will not tax billionaires. Just flat out won't tax them. And I'm like, okay, then the city is going to go slowly broke. Like, the national budget's already going broke. Okay. But stick in there to the midterms. We got a lot of work to do. Thank you for the likes, the suggestions, the restacks. They're very important. Subscribe if you like. There's no paywall, but if you want to kick down a couple of bucks, I really appreciate it. Or buy me a cup of coffee, whatever you want to do. And just stay healthy, stay sane, because giving up is not an option. Until next time, please think about it. Peace.